Okay, we are live. So, welcome everyone. You're live to another expert session. So, expert session number 107. So, welcome everyone. So, let's start this expert session. So, today we'll talk with Anthony Gale. So, what makes Anthony Gale's trajectory so compelling? It's not just that he has built successful companies, but that he has repeatedly just one moment, sorry. Uh, but he has repeatedly redefined what the act of building means across different waves of commerce technology. His journey begins close to the customer, running a digital agency where he recognized repeated e-commerce friction and turned that pain into his first major product company, Shoprocket. From there, Anthony didn't just settle into a single lane. He expanded his scope, moving into startup building, advisory roles, and angel investing. And now, rather than observing the current platform shift from the sidelines, has returned to the front lines as a co-founder at geofi, building AI native discovery infrastructure from e-commerce brands. And joining me today as my co-host, Rafael Barini, who brings his own formidable background to this conversation. Rafael is a global tech and digital executive with over 25 years of experience leading digital transformation for giants like Carrefour and Restaurant Brands International, and architecting Brazil's first 3P marketplace. Together, we want to explore the mechanics of Anthony's transitions. So, Anthony, thank you for being here today. And to start, we always like to open with a controversial question. And the controversial question for you is Anthony, you have built, advised, and invested. And to be honest, what do you think about do career investors actually understand what it takes to build a company, or are they just pattern matching from the sidelines?
Mm, that's a very good question, and that's a very controversial question as well, actually. But honestly, I will hand on heart, and I will, stand on that hill. There are some really good investors who don't come from an entrepreneurial background or a business background, but the majority of the really good investors are former founders, people that have built something, understand industry as well. It's interesting because you look at Europe as a whole, and then you look at the US, and in Europe, and especially in London, some of the investors are the they've come from consultancy backgrounds, they've come from the KPMGs, they've come from those kind of places, finance backgrounds, investment bankers, private equity sometimes. Um, but in the States, if you look at the Silicon Valley startups and the investments there, a lot of them are investors that have done it, have been there, done it, had a good successful exit. And actually, from my perspective, when I'm speaking with a VC or an investor, someone that's done it, it's not just money, it's experience, it's advice. Um, yeah, they are infinitely more valuable from a startup perspective than here's some money. Do you tick the boxes? And I think part of that culture that we have in Europe of it's box ticking, unfortunately. Do you meet the numbers? Are you can you prove things? Are you risk free or as risk free as possible? I think that holds us back as Europe. It's changing.
Mhm.
It's changing massively, and there's some really good people that have gone into um, venture capital that have had an exit. Um, you look at some of the success from Skype, for example, over in Sweden and Estonia. That they now invested into the startup sphere there. There's some big companies in Europe that have had good exits, and those guys are now kind of venture capital. They they always have that angle of they add more value. So it's changing, but yeah, I will say there's a hell of a lot of investors in Europe, possibly maybe even more so in London, which are almost accountants, box ticking, and yeah, don't like them
Great.
very much.
Great. Yeah, thank you, thank you. Rafael, do you have any comment about this or?
No, I just agree with Anthony. I think there are very different profiles, but you can find very smart people and people with a lot of experience that can really add value and not only money
Mhm.
when you are trying to 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 build stuff. So yeah, it's mixed. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Great.
I will add actually, getting an investor sometimes is the more important thing. Getting money into the business is really important, and having that investor with a good background is a really added benefit. It's not always possible, but it's the ideal. Um, but a lot of the time, the investor with that background just gets it more. They understand it a little bit more, and they're more likely to invest. So
Yeah, and in many cases, the the additional help is even more important than the money because when especially in this world that we are living right now, execution is becoming a lot easier than what was in the past. So in the past you had like to spend months and an engineering team to test something, and now you can do something very fast with AI and tools that can be available for everyone. So money is still important, but I would say that is less and less important over time. And the real benefit of being part of a ecosystem or having different visions to help to filter and organize your ideas can be even more relevant in this context.
yeah, what you've just touched upon there actually is it's a double-edged sword for a lot of startups. Um, the ability to build an MVP now with AI tooling and Claude Code and Lovable, Replit, all those kind of platforms means you can get started very quickly. But it also means that the VCs are almost stepping that further away from the earlier stage. You hear the story of, we had a presentation and we got investment. Like, great, that's never going to happen anymore. It's like, well, if you've got a presentation, give it a Claude Code, build your MVP, and get some customers, get some traction to prove it to me. So it's a double-edged sword in a way. Yes, you can get started as a business much more easier now, but also there's that, right, well, now we're moving up a stage. And again, I compare the US to the UK. It's still that kind of step, what's called a pre-seed kind of startup in the UK, maybe even be a seed company level in the US, or the money that they invest is a lot heavier, a lot more in the US than it would be in the UK. And Asia is also another really interesting market. I don't have that much experience with it, but I hear some really, really good things about it. So
Yeah, yeah, amazing. And let's get back a bit to the beginning of your career or your journey, let's say. So when you started working at an agency, right? And when was the moment that you realized that the agency that your agency's recurring problem was actually a product company?
actually, my actual career started as a marketing manager kind of role. So in a
Mhm.
client, kind of working with agencies and that kind of thing. And then I moved over to an agency. Um, I worked for other people's agency, and then I worked for my own agency. And then I saw, so we had a problem. This was 15, 20 years ago. E-commerce platforms aren't what they are now. Shopify wasn't as mature as it is now. Magento, for those that remember Magento 1, it was painful. It was, you had to spend a lot of time even before you started working on it, basically. So you had to invest a lot of time just setting it up, cutting stuff out, and reworking it. For us as an agency, we could see that we weren't making much margin. on those builds. There were a lot of kind of smaller budget clients that really wanted an ecom website, whatever they were doing. But I don't know, I can't even remember. Let's say it was 20K budget for an ecom site. That's all. That's a Magento project, but you wouldn't make much money on that project as a client. So you kind of, is it worth us doing it? And then we're like, actually, how can we do this? We started building an ecom platform for ourselves that we could reuse. And it was quite groundbreaking at the time. It was SaaS, it was headless. Literally take a web page, drop a line into the HTML, turns it into an ecom platform with all pop-ups and and it worked really well. So originally it was for us to kind of go, well, we can do 15K projects, 10K maybe even, and still make profit on them. So the idea was for us to be able to take on more work. And then you kind of start thinking, well, we're one of many agencies out there. We were in a shared office, and I think there's about 6 or 7 other agencies in there. If we've got this problem, everyone else has got the problem. That was the thinking anyway. So we then thought, well, look, actually, we need to focus on this. We could resell this. And I'm going to be honest, for those that have agencies and worked in agencies, one of the pain in the backsides is clients. One, getting new clients constantly, always a challenge. But then you get some really brilliant clients. Absolutely. Like I'm not gonna moan about all of them, but some of them, they want blood out of a stone. They want everything, and everything you say is too expensive. And you kind of saying, well, you're paying for our time. Whereas at an agency, we're not billionaires. We're not making loads of money here. But it's always kind of squeezed on the price. So, and management and getting sign off and getting them to approve and them listening to your advice as well. It's a lot of trouble. We're UX experts, we're design experts. We're thinking about your clients. We're not just thinking what you like, we're thinking about what the clients like. And that challenge was a real pain. So I'm going to be honest, getting away from that was a big win as well. So, you sit there and think, we've built this product, other agencies want it. It means it's SaaS as well, so people can sign up. You still interact with a client, but not in a very different way. SaaS was booming at the time. So we're like, okay, well, let's see how we get on with this. Let's see what happens. And there was a lot of excitement around it, So we closed the company down. We closed the agency down. We moved some of the staff over to the product. We took on venture capital firm. We joined Seed Camp in London. So yeah, that's very quickly overview of the kind of the journey, shall we say, to startups. But always ecom. There's always something with me. I always come back to ecom and retail. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rafael, I think you have some similarities on this or so. So you built one of the first marketplace in Brazil, and it was basically building a platform, right?
Yeah. This is the point about focusing on product. So you can really have some focus on solving a specific problem with a product, which is completely different than providing services which require a lot of personalization, face-to-face interaction. You also need to have a lot of interaction while you are building a product as well. But then you have more focus on thinking about the problem in a wider scale and not really specifically to that customer that you are trying to solve for. So it's very different. And what is challenging, maybe Anthony can mention about this as well, is you need to shift a bit the mindset, right? Because you are working every single day trying to help that specific customer to solve something, and then you need to shift the vision. So how do you shift your mindset in a practical term? Like you change your agenda, uh, how to do this transition? What do you think are
Yeah.
the best strategies?
Um, Getting away from clients was, I totally get it. It's like you're moving away from a service to a product, and dealing with clients as a service. Your time, your involvement with them is what embeds you with them. It's not your product. When you have a product at a company, that's what they're after. They don't really want you. They don't care who I am. You know, um, so that mind shift is really, really interesting, and it's a challenge. Actually, it was a challenge at the beginning. But I will say, actually, I don't think I've met any agency that doesn't want to build products. All agencies want to, turn it into a factory, if you like. And I go back to when every web agency had its own CMS, and then WordPress came along and blitzed it. So they all see channels of revenue, because they know that the advisory stuff, one, it gets taken for granted a lot of the time, and commoditizing time is difficult. Commoditizing a product is a little bit more easier to understand from a client perspective. I'm buying something physical, but like from even from our developers perspective, at the agency, 1 week they'll be working on Magento, then it'll be on whatever software. It might, maybe even WooCommerce back then. It was different for them, and that's got its ups and downs as well, because sometimes working on different stuff is it's a refresher, it's fresh for them, but then also they got to oh, I was in Shopify, now how do I do this in WordPress again? I'm just kind of making that up. But getting your developers kind of working on a product is also a challenge. I when we moved to developers to Shoprocket, one of the things I tried to encourage was developers doing something outside of it, because working on one thing can be quite a tunnel, and you become blind to what else is happening in the world, almost in the tech world, shall we say. So for me, it's always good for a developer to work on different stuff, have some innovation time when you're at work. Look at something else. Sometimes it's beneficial for us. Oh, look, we're working on this little project, and this technology is really cool for us, and we can do this, and this now. That's beneficial for us, but also it keeps them fresh. But like even account management role from an agency, you're stepping back. Your customer support, you're not as proactive, shall we say? Yeah, you automate a lot of stuff, but yeah, it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge, and some people just aren't right for it. That's also important to say. Some people are product, some people are service, some people can go between both. We let some people go because it wasn't right for them, and we hired other people that were definitely more SaaS-based kind of technology people.
Yeah, great. I've worked in platform and in more time with SMB clients, and it was interesting also to see how the behavior changes across their success, let's say, because when they entered it was an e-commerce platform, and when they entered and they were small, everything is good, everything is okay. They are more
Partners,
they are
maybe.
more yeah, no, they're more partners, and they are there they want to understand how to do things into your platform and etc. But with time, as they grow and their necessities change and their complexity changes, they want to start to have like what are you guys building? What are you going to launch next? What's the next evolution this product will have, and etc. And they start to have, oh, now I want this because I'm doing also this and this and this, and they start to have these different demands from the product. And this is also something that's, in my opinion, when I was there, was important to see how we as a company and as a platform, we should look at that and understand, okay, but is this for one client? Is this a pain for just one client? Is this a pain for a bunch of clients? How this will affect our product? And I believe on top of that, is this the way, or is this the road that we want for our product also, right?
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon the classic product manager roadmap management challenge. What are people asking for? Is it beneficial for us? Are they going to pay for it? If we introduce this, is it going to be beneficial for a lot of other companies? You know, are they going to make? Are we going to be able to compete better with our competitors? Are they going to stay with us? Are they going to be more sticky? It's a real dilemma that actually I kind of feel, in a way, smaller businesses sometimes can be more of a well, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? You know, and it's not always the best thought out thing. With a slightly more enterprise clients, sometimes they're even willing to pay for it, even if it's kind of, you know, we'll pay you guys if you can do this for us. That's a dilemma. Is, you know, do you have the bandwidth to build that? Do you have the bandwidth to can it be reused? Can we introduce this into the platform? I mean, that's the ideal. If you can get a client to pay for it and everyone else is going to use it as well, fantastic. Very rare that happens, but you might say, you know, okay, I want it to work like this. Can you build an integration with our ERP system or whatever it is? You know, so that's always going to be a challenge. But it's really important to be strict. I mean, we've got it at geofi at the moment. You know, we're having people saying, "Oh, I would love this," and I'll be honest. You know, me as the founder, I'm like, oh, "It'd be really cool to do this and really cool to do that," and oh, we'd be the best platform in the world if we had all of this. And he's like, "Well, whoa, like step by step, you know, onboard clients, maybe lose a few clients, make some mistakes, and then, you know, grow more slower." And your roadmap is always going to be changing because the world changes, especially what, you know, the world we're in is AI and, you know, LLMs, and they're always changing. E-commerce is changing how it works now. So you can't be too kind of thinking too far forward is in what is going to be on the roadmap. You have to be very agile.
Yeah. And I think it's important to set clear boundaries, right? Of what is your product,
Yes.
and also try to build really an ecosystem or have solutions that are connected to your platform that you can extend whenever the customer have a problem that you cannot solve, but you have another company that can do this.
Yep.
You can still offer as a solution, and this is part of the solution as well. So having clear purpose and clear boundaries can help a lot with this challenge of personalization versus focus. You can have a clear speech to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think from a SaaS perspective, especially now with how AIs are working with MCPs and kind of you know, working like that, you need to build a platform that is flexible regardless of that, you know, within the boundaries, like you said, Rafael. Like Geoffrey, we're not going to start building I'm trying to think of something, you know, we're not going to build a Shopify alternative just so we can plug it, you know. That's not our remit. That's not what we're focused on. This is really where we're going. But that end goal changes. You know, we actually didn't realize that OpenAI and Claude were going to release this, and that makes us need to do this a bit more. So I think that kind of purpose is really, really important and driven. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're talking about purpose and boundaries and all of that, and focusing on building a product. I want to move to the next, let's say, block of what we're talking about. Is you said that when you built Shoprocket, you also got some investments and etc. So what did raising capital force you to clarify that you were avoiding, or how raising the capital changed changed something that you could that you were seeing differently, or that you were probably avoiding to see, let's say, in your
Yeah.
company, in your product?
Yeah. I mean, there's kind of upsides and downsides to fundraising, and I think it's really important that a company understands why they're fundraising. What is that getting them? Yes, it's cool. Wow, yeah, we've got VC investment. We're cool dudes, and let's get lots of t-shirts with our logo now on it. Yep, great, but actually, this is not. It's not. It's a business. This is business we're talking about. You're taking on investment. Why? Because it's going to allow us to do this. I want the investment to come in, and we then invest it into this in order to get more revenue in, to grow faster, to do more things, to open up more doors for clients and do this and this. So it should always be seen as an accelerator or a growth thing, not it's cool. It's we must do it because everyone else does it. From our perspective, I think we took on investment a little bit too early. If I'm honest, we didn't really have our product kind of fit, go to market kind of understood. But then when we did take investment on, it's stuff like, well, we have a board, we have advisors, we have people that we are accountable to, not just ourselves. So we have to think about what we're doing, and we have to justify it way more. Like, you can justify things. It's your own business. You can justify it. You know what? If you don't want to do it, don't do it. You got no one to answer to. But actually, when you take on that investment, you're making a commitment. It's like a marriage. You are taking on a partner, potentially for life in this business, and you have to work with them. You don't always have to agree with them. Like your wife. You don't always have to agree with your wife, but you have to work with them, and you have to think about how are we going to go, into the future together. But they've invested under the belief that you are the right person to run that business. You are the right team. You have the right opportunity that we're investing into, and we're going to hold you accountable to that. You make those promises, in your vows. When you take the term sheet on, it's an agreement, and you have to adhere to that. So it makes you think much more about what you're doing as a business, and you have to justify what you're doing. You can't go on a whim. You can't do that. You have to think things through. Even like, the founders agreement, that's important. If I've taken an investment on, but if I leave after 3 months, 6 months, I don't own that business anymore. It's not my business. And I think that's also one of the things, is that when people start a business, they've got to treat that as a third person. It's something there. It's not you. It's not an extension of you. Yes, you're investing into it. But when you take an investment on, it really is even further away from being part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Great thinking. Yeah. You're bringing someone else that will from time to time will knock on your door and say, hey,
Yeah.
how's everything going, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in a sense, raising capital uh, can enable you to go faster in some senses, but it's also be more thoughtful and more careful about how to drive things up. So it's a mix.
Mm.
Yes, and you said you had partners, and what's one? I have one question here that's interesting. At least I think, what's the hardest truth about founder partnerships that only surfaces when the stakes get high? So,
Yes.
how's
That's a really
your
good
sense?
question.
How's your relation with partners?
Yeah. So your co-founders are not always who you think they are. Is really really important. If you're going to go in, don't hire your friends. Don't hire just fun people. You know, you don't have to like your co-founders. You have to work with them professionally. One of the real issues that we faced, and I've seen it in my, Shoprocket, we saw it there. I've seen it so many times in startups, is that there's two co-founders, three co-founders, whatever it is, and they all think they've got the equal say. And if there's two of you, that's a dilemma. If there's three of you and then one of them has no opinion, that's a dilemma. How do you work through that? You can have contracts and stuff like that, but I think that's really, really important. So, for me, there always needs to be someone at the top of the pyramid, someone that is the CEO or the founder, and there's co-founders. There needs to be a clear, remit of this is what you focus on, this is what I focus on, and this is what the other team does, and this is the structure of it. This is how we make decisions. It's really important, it's certainly at an early stage startup, to make decisions really, really fast. I would almost say, and this is not a hard fast rule, but sometimes making the quicker decisions better than making the wrong, taking too long and making the right decision. So make a wrong decision quick, you'll carry on. Take too long to make a decision and you could die. It's simple as that. So the founding team need to have that process in place. It's really like process for a startup is way more important than people realize. Having agreements, documents, process flows. If this, then that. We're all kind of techie guys. If this, then that. Great. Decision tree. Move on. Done. I don't agree with it, but the CEO's decided. It's their remit. The marketing managers decided this is for marketing. Great. I'm going with their marketing decision. Yes, you can challenge things. You can prove choose things. If there's a process in place to kind of get that going and agreed very quickly, great. You just need to work it out. You, as the founder, as the founding team, sometimes you need to suck it up and say, I disagree with it, but for the sake of clarity, and that person's the expert in that space, it's their remit, we'll move on. So
Yeah, when there's one quote that I always remember. Someone said it. I think it was someone from Brazil. I don't know who was it. I don't remember. If someone recognize, please let me know. Is that you should never hire someone that you can't fire. So like
massively.
yeah, so like a friend, family, or someone that you won't be able after to fire also. So Gordon, please,
Yeah,
you
it's
guys
an
could
interesting.
join. You have some
Yeah,
great experience also in building and scaling and selling companies.
yeah. You hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah,
We'll go.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one you raised. It's something I haven't talked about in starting a business. And twice this has happened to me. And second time, actually, funnily enough, in what is now Quantalingo. When I set up my first business way back, basically, I was working for BT in London, and effectively, I was being treated pretty badly, and I got a huge amount of business for BT, and I got a very simple contract, which I guess wouldn't happen in this day and age. So I said to a couple of colleagues, said, "Look, why don't we basically go and set up our own company?" And I have to say, what was phenomenal was I was working very, very closely at the time with News International newspapers and BBC TV. And funnily enough, I mean, I don't know, some of you, I'm sure you will, Anthony, know the legendary Kelvin Mackenzie, who was editor of The Sun at the time, and I was very close to him. And I sort of said to Kelvin, I said, look, if I leave BT and set up my own business, will you switch all your business to me? And he said, yeah, of course. Which, funnily enough, with someone like Kelvin, without a contract, is actually probably quite a big risk. But in fairness, he actually did it. And also I got the BBC. So in other words, basically overnight, I sort of took a massive amount of business from BT to my own startup company, which BT could do nothing about apart from just sort of see if they could get it back, which they couldn't. But the point I'm going to make is that there were going to be 4 partners, equal partners. And basically the 4th partner, who had all sorts of great connections, his role was going to be to basically kind of oversee the setup of the infrastructure, while the other 3 of us kind of worked, if you like, our sort of gardening leave notice, which was great. And he got what he had to get done. Then the moment the business started, he basically thought, right, okay, I'm going to sit here, I've done my bit, and you guys are going to drive the business. And we're like, hey, that's not what it's about. You know, you're an equal partner in this. And suddenly we were stuck with someone who'd actually not really done very much, and we thought would do. And it got very, very messy. And and actually what happened also was that one of my 3 partners of BT had brought him in. And he felt really bad about the fact that we ended up with a very, very, very messy situation. We had to try and effectively sort of divorce, as it were. And then it was a big distraction. It was none of us saw coming. And your point about don't hire someone you can't fire. Well, you know, he came in as basically an equal partner. And a bit sort of closer to today, when we set up the company that has now become Quantalingo, there were 3 of us. And all 3 said, right, okay, we've all got different skills. We're all really going to sort of get into this and make the whole thing fly. And Robin, my partner and our co-founder, and I, we worked together like 20 years ago in a public company, and we are completely on it. And actually, the 3rd partner was supposed to come in as a CTO. And having said that this was going to be his thing, his full-time thing, he was going to do nothing else, it became very clear that actually he got lucrative consultancy work on the side and was kind of dipping in and dipping out as he sort of felt like it, which actually, to be honest, was much more of an irritation to Robin than it was for me, because Robin ended up doing his job as well as, you know, the sort of CTO job. So my point is, basically, it's not just choose your employees. I mean, more critically, I think you've got to choose your founder partners very, very, very carefully and make absolutely sure that, you know, you all know exactly, you know, what you're going to do. And actually, to be honest, you kind of really need, right from the start, ideally a sort of good leaver, bad leaver agreement in place, so that if there is an issue, then it becomes much easier to actually part company. But as I said, it's happened twice, and I suspect it probably happens a lot, you know, where everyone gets really enthusiastic, but actually you end up with sort of real grafters who are completely committed, and there can quite often be someone who suddenly thinks they're doing all the work. This is great.
Yeah, I think reverse vesting is what I would always suggest. Shares only become kind of theirs over a certain amount of period. It looks like I'm frozen.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah. Yes, you are.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay though, guys?
Yep. Yeah, we can hear.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, sorry. I'll turn my camera off and turn it back on again. But just yeah, Gordon, just to kind of carry on with that, reverse vesting, super important.
I agree.
Any equity shares, you know, big cliff, years cliff, 2-year cliff even, if you're really lucky. Don't give equity away in a business. I mean, that's for partners, and you know, it should also be, if someone leaves, they don't get anything. You know, just because you were there at the beginning doesn't mean you actually are always going to be there. You know, yes, if they invested a certain amount of time, you might want to give them some equity, maybe not the whole amount. You know, if it's 25% each for 4 people, maybe that's not the route to go.
Yeah, no, look, I agree with you, but I still think, you know, that's a sort of situation if you've got something messy that occurs. But what you really want to try and do is actually not have a messy situation occur. I mean, you kind of, what you're talking about is a process. Sorry, I hate the word process with what's going on in the UK at the moment, but it's the most abused, overused word. Anyone who's following UK politics will know what I mean. But I just think it's like, you know, choose your wife very carefully. You know, you have a girlfriend that suddenly it becomes something that you didn't anticipate she was going to become when you actually marry her. And that's probably, you know, not a bad analogy, you know. That's all I'm saying. But I know I agree with you, Anthony, completely. But also, you know, quite often you kind of, in the rush to get things moving, you think, yeah, well, we'll sort the paperwork a bit down the track. And that's, you know, not a great idea. You want to get everything sort of sorted out in advance.
Yeah.
I
Great.
agree.
And
It's actually
I have,
it's super important.
please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I'm just
Please,
saying it's super important at the beginning.
I think he's gone.
Yeah.
Had a
I'm
little
still
strop.
here. I don't know.
Oh, you're
what's
still
going
there.
on.
I thought
Okay.
you'd gone.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Yeah, we can't see your camera. I don't know if I have turned it on again, but yeah, just for you to know. Yeah, so I have another question. Moving forward. So, and I think this is a great question for all the three of you. So, Anthony and Rafael and Gordon, how was it? Was it hard to give up on operational control and start advising other builders or other people? How do you all see this? So maybe Rafael, you can start as Anthony and as Gordon and three of you are still building uh, companies and things and products, but the three of you also advises other companies. And how do you feel? Is it hard, or at the beginning, or at the beginning was it hard to start advising, saying, oh, okay, so I would put my hands on this and do this for these people, or I would do this and this? And how was it how was this transition?
Do you want me to go? I mean, basically, my first real experience of advising was when I was invited to join the mentoring team at Imperial College in London, which was working with Imperial postgrads and alumni on their sort of startup ventures, which was really interesting. I mean, the thing about that was you came across some fascinating ideas. You knew you were dealing with people who had incredible ability, so they could actually do what they said they could do. But the frustration, and I know talking to other mentors, we all kind of came across this, was that they were very selective in what advice they listened to. You know, if you're dealing with very, very clever sort of people, one of the issues, of course, is that they've also got sort of typically quite big sort of ego, and you know, and therefore they sort of think they know best in some things. I mean, there was one sort of startup where they actually wrote the most incredibly slick business plan I've ever seen. But that said, that, you know, we're going to build this for 3 years, then basically we're going to list a company and then we'll take our money and we'll go. And it was like, it doesn't work that way. You know, the moment you list a company, especially if it's only a few years old, you're completely locked in because, you know, the institutions, the investors are basically, and they just didn't get it. And that was just one case of where I mean, I really enjoyed sort of working with them and helping them. But the frustration was when they were kind of selective. I guess the thing is they weren't paying. I think if you're actually advising a company that's paying you, then they're going to take your advice a bit more seriously. But, you know, in answer to your question, I you know, enjoy it. You kind of learn something from everything you do. I think you're still frozen, Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony
I'm
is
still
still
frozen, but I
Yeah,
still
either that
see
or you're
myself
holding,
shuddering a little bit.
you're striking a pose and holding it very well.
Yeah.
No, unfortunately not. But yeah, I have no idea what's going on. My Wi-Fi, I've just checked my Wi-Fi speed. It's all good. So it is what it is. But just the advisory thing for me. Sorry, just checking you guys can hear me. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear.
The advisory thing for me is incredibly rewarding sometimes and incredibly frustrating others. Early stage founders need the most advice. Listen to someone that's done it, made those mistakes, but often they're very confident and arrogant to an extent. Actually, going back to last week's kind of webinar that we were on, some people are uncoachable. Some people kind of just want your name on their deck and as an advisor. Companies at a certain level, the bigger they are, the more they're paying you, shall we say, because startups usually get it cheaper for some reason. The more they're going to listen. They've got a project, they've got a scope, they want to give it to you. But yeah, early stage startups can be very rewarding. It's really great when they are listening to your advice and you see it come to fruition. But then sometimes no, I know best. So.
Sorry, I was listening. It's just my dog was trying to eat a wasp.
No, just to add and basically in the same line of vision the guys brought here is, I think, really depends on who is in the other side. There is openness really to really listen and discuss topics, then it's how it should be, right? Then it's really rewarding. It's good. It's interesting, and you can really feel that you are adding a lot of value. But when you need to bring the same topic multiple times, then it's not very interesting. You always want to go to the other side and try to start to execute stuff, but you need to really have a clear focus, and in this case it's not as helpful as could be. So this openness is important, and of course the overall context and how aligned it is your experience to what you're trying to help. Sometimes you can bring different perspectives, but most of the times your experience is the thing that is important for that business context.
I had a client not that recent, relatively recently, who just would not listen to me. I was like, don't do that. Do it offline. Get your clients using it. Wouldn't listen. Built an online version. Okay, get people using that. No. We need an AI version. I'm like, listen, you're really not listening to me. She listened to one piece of advice I gave her. You need to sack me. I said, we don't need to work together anymore because there's no point. You're not listening to me, and you're just spending money and wasting time. It's still, the business still isn't doing anything. It had potential, but it's not done anything. So,
I need to go. I'm afraid, guys. I'm already a minute late for a call.
Good to see you again.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Good. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Gordon.
Cheers.
And yeah, bye. And well, let's getting back here, and now let's get a bit into AI in our last 10 minutes or so. And well, also AI and also building again, let's say. And what gets easier in your opinion, and what gets harder when it's the second time that you're building a company or a startup? So I believe you both have this experience, and what does actually gets easier on the second time, and what does actually gets it's harder, if if there's something that's harder rather than building a company is always hard.
Building a company is always hard. Absolutely. Look, building it second time, after you've done something relatively successful, your confidence is there. That's the key thing. I've always suffered with confidence. I'm not the most confident person. I hate being on stage in front of people. That's definitely not me. But running a business, and knowing that you can do it, and you've done it before, going into it second time, you're less hesitant. You know what to do. You know how to build the structures. You made mistakes. You've made loads of mistakes, and you learn from them. That's important. I would say it doesn't necessarily get easier because you still make mistakes and things are different, and you have different people working with you, and you're fixing a different problem, and the world has changed, and technology has changed, and everything like that becomes still the challenge. I would say from a technical perspective, and we talked about, Rafael talked about it earlier, is you can use AI to build your product now. So you can get a product going much quicker. That's one thing. You've got a massive resource of some intelligence on your, in your app. You can talk to Claude and ChatGPT and whatever you want to use, Perplexity, to do research for you, to validate things. You can write stuff a lot quicker. You can plan stuff out a lot quicker. That's easier now than it used to be. That's for sure. But there's added benefit, pressure as well. The second time, after Shoprocket, we weren't successful. Financial pressure. I need to go and get a job. I need to go and work for someone that can pay me a salary to pay my mortgage. This last one is a massive amount of pressure because, I'm self-funded. I'm bootstrapped. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. That's a massive amount of pressure and challenge. And I think going back to what we were talking about with venture capital, is I want to try and delay that if we do that at all. So there's that pressure as well, because I've learned from taking on VC money. So it all just shifts into different positions, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to add on this point, I think the context now is really, really different than what used to be like not long time ago, like 3 years ago, and this changes everything. So if you the experience that you had in the first launch, let's say, you can of course use a lot of the experiences, the learnings, but the context is very different now. Execution now is accessible to everyone. Everyone can build stuff, and everyone can create software. And we see the big techs also creating features that can wipe out a lot of startups that were just created.
Yeah.
So the context is very, very different. So where to put energy? I think this is the most challenging thing right now, because you can put energy on building the product, or thinking about the distribution or content, or like how to build an audience that can be helpful. And all of these things are very different than what used to be 3 years ago. So there is an important moment to really understand that you need to learn about everything again, and considering that execution is cheaper and easier now, uh, looks like the judgment is more important now. So here is where I believe we need to focus, because having a bunch of stuff running or creating a lot of work streams, where to put the energy, and this is the judgment that I think it's important, and that the experience can help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and talking more specifically about AI, and that you both are building solutions around that also, is how do you know when a technology Wave is actually a platform shift worth betting on? Or
That's an interesting question. How do you know when it's worth betting on? Users. That's probably the the adoption and how quick people are adopting it. How close to their kind of daily life is these products becoming? How reliant upon them are they? We're talking about Jeffy and GEO and being products being found in LLMs, kind of what we do. There's no doubt about that in my mind that is a big shift in how people behave with product searching. Google, like how did we do product searches before Google was around? It's a massive shift. Rather than going to browsers in encyclopedias and stuff like that, we use Google. But now it's shifting again. I want advice. I don't just want to find stuff. I want to find the right stuff for me. And the way AI is embedded with everyone now, 75% of all users now have searched for products using an AI bot, ChatGPT or Claude, Perplexity, whatever those are. That's a massive shift in behavior. And you can't deny that. The earlier you get that, it's you need to see the signs. There's no hard and fast rule of how to see that. You've got to be involved in embedded in that kind of space to really understand it and see what early adopters are doing, see what people are doing. There's lots of technology that's gone out that was amazing, but no one's really adopted and used. So for me, it's always down to the users and adoption.
Yeah, great. Rafael, do you have any take on that? You're actually also building around real estate, right? It's a bit far from e-commerce, but it's interesting also to have that perspective.
Still on the transactional side. So
Yeah.
man, I think what Anthony said is perfect. So you need to have users. This is the key point, and users, especially paid users, when you're talking about something that can have potential scale, because well, especially now building something free and having some adoption, it's not super difficult. So I would add just this point. Sometimes you need to have paid users as well, because otherwise you're not really testing whatever you are building. You need to understand if people are eager to spend some money with you and with the product that you are building. And they only do this if it's adding value for them.
Yeah.
I think it's just this point.
I think just because just to add to that, technology now is not a moat anymore. I know guys that have recreated literally massive platforms with AI coding. Point it at something, copy it, build it better. Technology is not there. It's the use base. It's the knowledge of the team behind it. It's the users adapting it and ingrained into it. That's the moat nowadays.
Yeah, I think that was my follow question coming from the answers you gave, which is with this being so easy to build solutions nowadays, does it put more pressure on let's say your product, Anthony, and your product, Rafael, on the product teams, on the companies that are building their solutions? So does this, I'm not saying that it will compete, but does this put more pressure on the products and people that are building proper SaaS solutions, being so easy nowadays to build some more customized solutions for different companies?
It's is it easier? Yes. Look, but we've got to understand what you can build nowadays with AI.
Yeah.
I can build load of crap. Like I can get it to do stuff and whatever. That's easy, but there's no substance to it. Like, what problem am I solving? You know, what am I fixing? What am I making better for potential users? That is always going to be the thing that wins technology. You know, I could literally copy Shopify. Perfect. I could copy Shopify. I could make it better. But am I just okay? Maybe I shouldn't have given that example. I do understand e-com platforms, but Shopify have the users, have the knowledge, they have the whole team of people that understand it. That again, going back, that's the key thing. That's that. Without that, you're building junk. You know, it looks great and it's amazing, but there's no substance to it. That's always going to be the thing that's missing out of anything. You know, I could build a house out of paper and it looks amazing. You know, I'm not going to go live in there. You know.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned earlier about judgment. I think judgment is becoming more expensive and more helpful in this context. And another aspect of the same topic is, I think most of the solutions and most of the people are trying to think how to optimize existing processes with AI, or how to do something that they already do better. But this is a lot more transformational. I think there are huge opportunities around things that we cannot do today that we could be doing with AI. And I think here is where we should put focus and attention, because just automating processes or doing something with 10% of the team that I used it to do before, of course, this is still opportunity. But the real value here, I think, is doing stuff that we cannot do today. What are the problems that we couldn't solve until now, and now we have something to enable or to become feasible? Here is where I think we should put more attention to attention and work, right, to make things happen.
I couldn't agree more. I like, you know, you can make something nicer and shinier and less, but you still got to shift users away from that. You know, how many times have you spoken with a client and we do it in this way and this is the way it's always been done and it works, so I'm not going to break it. You know, so you've got to move them away from that. But if you can say, well, actually, you know, you're doing something, we can change the whole thing and it makes it X amount of better. You know, that's the important thing. I couldn't agree more. And I think that's going back to your earlier question, is those people that understand that are the 100% investable people. You know, the experts, the real domains that don't just say, well, let's make this a bit shinier and a bit better. This is a revolutionary way of doing something.
Great. Thank you both. We reached 1 hour, and yes, so thank you both. It was a very great conversation, and appreciate very much. And well, Anthony, how can people find you? How can people find about geofi and what you guys are doing there? So please let us know.
Sure. Obviously, I've just shared my LinkedIn profile. You can find me on LinkedIn, Anthony Gale. If you're after geofi, it's geoffy.ai. So just browse for it. We're very new still, so we maybe not searched Google search friendly, maybe in LLMs now. But yeah, reach out to me, find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to advise anyone that's I'm thinking of setting a startup. You know, if you've got an idea, I can tell you, kind of give you some guidance. If you're looking for SEO, GEO support, I'm also happy to help there. If you're a retailer trying to get your products found in LLMs, yeah, give me a shout.
Great. And Rafael, how can people find you? And there's any product that people could find that you're building? Please let us know.
Sure. No, and thanks for inviting me, Gustavo. Nice to meet you, Anthony. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's LinkedIn/Rafael Barini. So yeah, happy to help anyone that is trying to build new products. I always like to chat about, especially topics related to AI and blockchain. These are the lines of study that I'm putting more energy right now. And yeah, happy to talk and happy to discuss about any topic.
Great. So thank you, everyone. See you on the next expert session. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate the invite.